A little frog sang a song on his log. Lose your blues, lose your blues, lose your blues. And you and I fell in love and reply on hearing her Dickey bird song.
Well, hey there, YouTube. Well, you may have noticed a bit of a difference in the intro song. What we heard there was a little snippet from the 1948 Dickey Bird song, a very popular song in 1948. And at the end of that, we had a little bird call from the American dickcissel. And that's going to be the subject of this video. To this video, we're going to talk about my Dickey. And I'm going to talk about my Dickey, then I'm going to show you my Dickey, and then we're going to see if we can get my Dickey up. So, stick around. Now, to be more precise, we're talking about my Dickey bird. We're talking about my Dickey bird camper tent. Now, the name Dickey bird comes from the manufacturer, the inventor of this tent, George I. Dickey, and he called his invention the Dickey bird camper. I believe he had at least one other Dickey bird tent. Dickey bird was a common phrase in the in the late 19th or early 20th century, on up until 1948, when that song was featured in a movie called The Daring Daughters. And the little song that you heard from the bird is the American dickcissel. Laura Ingalls Wilder writes about how her and her family entered Oklahoma on the plains, and she writes a couple of paragraphs on these beautiful little tiny birds that flitted back and forth in the fields as they went through Oklahoma. And she asked her pa what they were, and he said they were Dickey birds, which is a shortening of the dickcissel. Those Dickey birds fly real fast, and they change direction real quick, so it's hard to catch them. But if you do catch a dickcissel, I'm told that penicillin will clear it right up. Now, on to the tent. This tent represents the birth of the American outdoor industry as we know it today. What we call car camping, family camping. This is most of the stuff we talk about here in the history of gear and in the living history component of this has to do with tramping and trekking and backwoods camping of the first 20 years of the 20th century and the last 10 years of the 19th, from about 1890 to about 1920, okay? After that, camping, the outdoor industry, starts to blossom as people start using their newfound automobiles that they can suddenly are cheap enough for them to acquire, to allow them to escape the city. By 1920, there were more people living in cities than there were out in the country. It was a little bit about 50-51, 49-51, but still, there were more people living in the cities. And these people wanted to get away from the drudgery, the heat of the tenements, the squalor, and just the oppression of the city, to go out into God's creation and see mountains and streams and babbling brooks and all that kind of thing. Model T allowed them to do that, and other automobiles. And up until this point, the types of tents that were made appealed mainly to backpackers and trekkers, backcountry campers. The umbrella tent appealed to the family camper, and there are several manufacturers of umbrella tents But the biggest advantage an umbrella tent has over a wall tent or an A-frame is that the sides of the tent are almost vertical, which means that if you have a 9-foot by 9-foot tent, you can stand up in most of it because it's about 8 feet by 8 feet at the top. Okay? Umbrella tents were popular and gained popularity until they reached a point of ubiquity from about 1920 until the early 1970s. In the 1970s, you could still go to state parks and see umbrella tents, canvas umbrella tents in the campgrounds being used by families with Coleman stoves. The same thing we see today in state parks, except they're large dome tents. In the 1920s, for most of the 20th century, it was umbrella tents. The Dickey Manufacturing Company is I'm having a hard time with the research on the company. I cannot find out when it was started. We do know that it started out as an agricultural canvas company, just like so many of the sleeping bag and tent manufacturers of the middle 20th century, the first third of the 20th century, where they were making canvas items for sale to farmers and ranchers and grabbing military contracts wherever they could. All of a sudden, a new market opened up to them, and that was the family camper, and just started growing like topsy. So the Dickey Company moved away from that. George I. Dickey was the fellow who I believe owned the company because he received a patent for this tent. It's a very unique tent in that it has no center pole. Most umbrella tents have a central pole. Place it on the bottom, on the ground or the floor of the tent, and it's just about a shade too tall to fit inside that tent. So it kind of stretches the fabric. And once you get it poked up there and get it vertical, that tent will stay up because the tension of the canvas pulling down on it. And if it's anchored strongly to the ground, it will stand up. All you need to do then is have some kind of device, make little rafters or something to spread out the top of the tent so that it has some form instead of being like a pyramid, like a miner's tent. Okay? The Dickey Bird camper, the patent he received was a crank device that you could open up the spreader bars to support the Before I go any further, let me just say, let's go look at my Dickey. First, I'll show you this is the spreader mechanism for the top of the tent, and it's a wonderful thing because there's no center pole on the tent when you use this thing. This was patented in 1924. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to set it over to the side. Okay, now there are a number of poles. There were 8 of these. And these are hot because they've been in the sun. White on one end, red on the other. They're made so they can snap together. Now we're going to set these off to the side. Get those in the shade so they can cool down. Now we've also got 4 poles here that have no paint on them except at one end. Okay, and they've got a nail, a spike at the end of this. We'll see if we can get you some close-ups of that. These, I figure, are the poles for the awning. Those others were the poles for the corners of the tent. Now, this is the duffel bag it all came in, with the extension collar. The only thing that confuses me about the whole thing, I think I've got everything figured out, is these ropes here. They're 1/4 inch sisal, and I don't think they're original to the tent. We'll set those down. This, which was the first thing that came out of the box, this I believe is a side curtain for the awning of the tent. This is my tent stake bag. This is where I put all my tent stakes. I use BFNs with a washer on the end. Now, this thing did come with a bag full of the original tent pegs. We'll go into the office, into the cabin, and talk about these a little bit more. We won't be using these. We're going to keep these pristine. But it's original equipment. This is the thing that surprises me about this tent, is how complete and how good a shape it's in. The tent came rolled up, and it has these webbing straps. We won't be reusing these because we did have some strap separation on it. So if I do use the strap to roll it up, I'll be making my own. This is the bag the poles came in. I don't know why it's got this hook and rope here. It's kind of daisy chained. I don't know exactly what the original owner had in mind for this, but the bottom of the bag is pretty much gone. So we'll have to make another bag for the poles. Now, the one thing that I still haven't quite figured out is the use of this can. Now, inside the can is a folded piece of aluminum, and if you look, there's a dimple in it. Okay, there is a corresponding dimple, almost a hole now, in the bottom of this can. Now, I figure that this was either on the bottom of the pole, the center pole. I'll show you that. That's a nifty thing. And or at the top. And one of the things we're going to do to see if it was at the top is we're going to go in here and we're going to look at the device that is at the top of this tent to see what condition it's in. That maybe the original owner was using this because that was getting a little boogered up. Now, I am going to attempt to put this tent up, but it's 3:30 in the afternoon in Texas, outdoors in August. We are not going to do any video of the tent being put up. It's going to be comical, I know, but I may stop in the middle of it and just go inside and get in the air conditioning. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and I'm going to find the device at the top of the tent. We'll shoot a little bit of close-up of that, a couple other close-ups of this stuff, and then I'll start setting this thing up. See you in a minute. Well, here's something interesting. The bottomette, the bug screen for this tent, is weighted on the bottom. It's like, oh golly, I may need to weigh that. It's got a weight and a hook that you can hook it to the side, and a tie on the side here, but there's a string running from over here, and the bobbinet is strung on it like a shower curtain. Now, the original owner apparently wasn't real happy with it because he's got it bobby pinned up here at the top, I guess to keep it from sagging in. That's real interesting. Okay, I'm going to go in and check out the top of the tent. Okay, so here is the boss at the top of the tent. It's threaded with a nut, and if we come through and look on the bottom, I hope you can see that, there is a disc and it's stud with a hole in it, and that is where the top of the spreader goes. Okay, so I don't think that can that we looked at earlier has anything to do with this. That has to do with how the patent showed me how this thing goes up. It's getting real hot right now. Let's go inside and talk about that. Well, I don't mind telling you, it's pretty dang warm out there. We got a heat advisory out, and I'm not going to be going back out until I might even put that tent up after dark, just to add another level of complexity to my problem. But this is August in Texas, and will take a while to put that up. Like I said, I'm not going to shoot that. Number one, I don't want to look like a freaking idiot, because I probably will. And the other thing is, yeah, it's just too damn hot. To get inside a canvas tent when the temperature, the ambient temperature, is over 100 degrees is a fool's errand, as my grandma used to say. Now, one of the great things about this tent, I mentioned it briefly, is how complete this tent is. I've had I have another tent similar to this. There's usually missing tent pole. The birch tent that I'm talking about is missing. I was missing one center pole. I had to make a new piece. And just about any vintage tent you get is missing the original tent stakes. As a matter of fact, you probably got some tents sitting in your garage now that you use regularly, modern tents, that you have lost the tent stakes on. Now this tent has this sack full of tent stakes, and they're gorgeous. I love them. These were made by a company called Premax, and we'll throw some of that stuff up, some propaganda up on the pictures. This is the tent stake here. I will not be using these when I take the tent out, when I set it up for display, or if I take it camping, because this is a good tent for a semi-permanent camp setup. Okay, but I'm not going to lose these. Okay, and I'm not going to booger them up, but they are a collector's item. It's very rare, not only that you get the tent stakes with the tent, but that you get one that you can identify who made them. I'm blown away by that. Now, the poles, the awning poles. Okay, first thing I want to say is it was so hot outside. I had laid all that stuff out and it sat in the sun for about an hour, and when I picked it up, I dang near burnt my little fingers. This is the pole for the awning. There are two of these. They're made in two sections, and we'll get it up here and we can see. You can see this is the nail, the stud that is on the end of both of these. Okay, now when I got the patent, I realized just how smart George I. Dickey, the fellow who designed and patented this tent, was with the way he sold and marketed this thing. Again, let's take a look at that. Now, let me show you the patent. This is the, let me move over so we get some room to show it. This is the original patent illustration. Now let's zoom in a little bit closer and you can see that he provides a pole that fits into a hole in the crank that will help you put this thing up. I hope to be able to figure that out. Putting this thing up, it's going to be a challenge. I tried to set the frame up outside of the tent so I could show it. It goes all cattywampus real quick. So we'll try. The propaganda says that it should take 11 minutes to put the tent up by one man. But these are people who wanted you to spend the equivalent of $1,000 in 1924, 25 in there while this tent was being sold. So we'll wait till the evening or maybe tomorrow morning to put the tent up. You won't even know it because that's what's coming up next. Well, okay. It is time for the old man to admit defeat. I tried several times last night, like yesterday evening after it cooled down. I even was out after 10 o'clock with the headlamp. This morning I rolled out of bed, hadn't even had my coffee yet, and I said, okay, I'm going to defeat this sumbitch. And I succeeded in bending the end of the pole. My reasoning was, what happened was the spreader bar, getting it down like that, got it into the tent. And I was able to get it up about, about to here. But then I couldn't get the spreader bars out because it needed to be cranked in order to here's a picture of the top mechanism. It'll show you. It has to swing in order to lock. And when the bars are down, you can't swing it. They have to be all the way out. Then you can swing it and lock it. My reasoning was, well, on my other tent, my birch tent, you lift the tent and then you slide on the center pole, you slide the spreader bars out. And I said, okay, well, the patent shows that this bar sits here like that. And I said, that's what I need to do. I need to get the tent up, put some tension on it so that the tent will stand up, and then spread out the spreader bars. And when I put the thing together and I got in and I pushed it up, I was able to stand up in the tent. But I couldn't get it centered. And then I looked up and I noticed that the top of it was laying at an angle instead of being straight up. And that's when I noticed I had bent this. So I got to get a repair. I'm running out of time this weekend. I've got to do laundry. It's Sunday. All of that crap is going to be out of the backyard on Monday when the lawn guys come. I've come to the determination that I'm 72 years old in February. I should have gotten help. I should have gotten somebody to help me. I'm lifting 60 pounds of tent straight up in Texas, August, and that was foolish. I wanted to get, I'm excited about the tent. I want to get it up. I want to be able to use it out at the Kingsbury Air Fair. It's a beautiful looking tent. It's in wonderful condition. It's just that the old guy, he's on the tail end of his condition scale. So we're going to try to see if we can get this up with somebody else helping, or come up with an alternative method besides this. I've seen where somebody has used a piece of 2x4 to lift it, and that gives you the ability to turn the crank. I don't know if that works or not. It's not something I am equipped to try at the moment. So I'm very sorry that I wasn't able to get this tent up. But I love making YouTube videos. I love talking to you guys in the comments. I love all the other stuff on all of the other social media. I like, you know, one of the reasons why my grandfather told me the reasons why we collect this. With two reasons why we collect this stuff. Number one is to keep it for the next guy. Okay, keep it in decent condition for the next guy. And the other is so that we can talk about it. I think I've talked about the Dickey Bird tent, and as much as I could find out about the Dickey Bird company, I just wished I could show it to you. But when you're 72 years old, don't push yourself. I don't want this YouTube thing to kill me. Well, we have an epilogue to this sad story. This is Monday morning. What you just saw was Sunday morning. Monday morning, got up, coffee's still being made, and I've opened it up here. I'll read it to you. I got a message this morning from the guy I bought the tent from. Going through some paperwork, I found instructions for setting up the tent. I'll send it to you. Here's pics until the card arrives, and I will post the picture up here, couple of pictures. Now, I'm generally not one to engage in woulda, coulda, shoulda, but there's a little message from on high to me to stick to my original plans. Had I stuck to the 3-part series on stoves instead of being so ding-dang excited about getting this tent, I'd have had them instructions in hand when I went out to put up the tent. Finish the stove video first, then do the tent video. Lesson learned. But folks, you gotta laugh. You just gotta laugh. Otherwise, you'll go crazy. Stove videos continue next week. Got 2 more left. One will be on the logistics of packing and setting up the stove for transportation, and then the final video, we actually will cook. Okay? Tell you more about that. We'll see you next Friday. We'll see you down the trail.